Okay, so now let's have another example and we will solve it using the Riemann sum. So the integral of 2x times x minus 1 dx limits from 0 to 1. So una natin gagawin is to find the value for delta x. Delta x natin is b minus a all over n. So this is equal to 1 over n. And our z sub I is equal to a or 0. That is 0. 0 plus delta x, that will be 1 over n times I. So this is equal to I over n. So ito yung mga isa-substitute natin. So this will be equal to the integral. Since f of x is equal to 2x squared, simplify muna natin to para mas maging madali. So 2x times 2x is 2x. 2x times x is equal to 2x squared minus 2x limits from 0 to 1. Of course, yung dx natin. Since f of x is equal to 2x squared minus 2x, then f of z sub I is equal to 2 times I raised to n minus 2, okay, quantity squared, times 2 raised to I over n. So simplifying this one, this is equal to 2i squared over n squared minus 2i over n. Okay? So ito yung substitute natin. So this will be equal to the limits of the function okay, summation of 2i squared all over n squared minus 2i all over n, where I is from 1 to n, limits as n approaches to infinity. So, simplify natin to. Ay, may nakalimutan ako, si delta x. So, 1 over n. Okay? So, simplify natin siya. Limits of the function, the summation of 2i squared. So, distribute natin siya all over n cubed minus 2i all over n squared. Of course, I equal to 1 to n and n approaches infinity. Limits of the function as approaches infinity. So, separately natin silang summation. So, this is equal to summation of 2i squared. Isolate na natin si constant. So, that will be equal to 2 raised to n cubed times the summation of I squared, where I is from 1 to n. And then minus, isolate ulit natin si constant, that is 2n squared, multiplied by summation of I, where I is from 1 to n. Of course, limits of this function as n approaches infinity. So, this will be equal to 2 over n cubed times I squared natin, that will be equal to n times n plus 1 times n plus 2, or 2n plus 1 I should say. Nasa formula to. All over 6 minus 2 over n squared, then the summation of I, that will be equal to n times n plus 1 all over 2. So, mag-simplify tayo. Of course, limits of this function as n approaches infinity. So, we try to simplify. This will cancel. So, matitira na lang dito will be 2. And of course, for this one, matitira dyan will be 3. Also, this will cancel. And also with this one. So, we are left with this is equal to the limits of the function 1 over n squared times, so simplify natin to, FOIL method, that will be equal to 2n squared and then plus n plus 2n plus 1 all over 3 minus, ayan, that will be n plus 1 all over n. Of course, n approaches infinity. So, simplify further natin. This will be equal to the limits of, okay, so this will be equal to 2n squared. And then combine like terms, that is positive 3n plus 1 all over 3n squared. So, dinistribute ko na siya. And then minus n plus 1 all over n. Of course, limits of this function as n approaches to infinity. So, what we do next is, okay, LCD tayo. This will be equal to, what is the LCD? That will be equal to 3n squared. So, this is 2n squared plus 3n plus 1 minus 3n. Okay, so 3n squared divided by n is equal to 3n times n. So, still that will be equal to 3n squared. And then, plus, and then minus pa rin. Kasi dinistribute na natin si negative dito. So, magiging negative na din siya. Kasi negative times positive is equal to negative. This is equal to 3n squared. That should be 3n lang. Kasi 3n squared divided by n is equal to 3n times, yeah, that will be 3n squared kasi meron pala tayong n ulit dito. And this will be 3n. Kasi 3n squared divided by n is 3n times 1, that is 3n. So, simplify natin, n approaches to infinity. So, this will be equal to the limit of the function 2n squared minus 3n squared, that is n squared. And then 3n minus 3n, that will cancel. So, plus 1 all over 3n squared. Of course, n approaches to infinity. So, this is equal to the limits of n squared all over 3n squared plus 1 over 3n squared as n approaches to infinity. So, this will cancel. So, we will be left with the limits of 1 over 3 plus 1 over 3n squared as n approaches infinity. So, let's continue sa next slide. So, this will be equal to, so separately natin kunin yung limits. So, this will be equal to the limits of 1 over 3 as n approaches infinity plus, that is plus, right? Okay, so negative pala to kasi mas malaki si 3. So, that will be equal to negative. Okay, 2n squared minus 3n squared is negative. Still, this is negative and negative. Okay, so, lagay natin dito negative. And then plus the limits of, the limits of 1 over 3n squared as n approaches infinity. So, the limit of a constant is equal to, okay, si constant, 1 over 3. And then, this will be equal to plus 1 over 3 times infinity squared. And 1 over infinity, infinity squared is equal to infinity. And 3 times infinity is still equal to infinity or a large number. So, we can say that this is this is equivalent to 1 over infinity. And 1 over infinity is approaching to 0. So, that will be equal to 0. Now, for our final answer, so the integral of the function 2x times x minus 1 dx limits from 0 to 1 is equal to negative 1 over 3. Kung napapansin nyo, yung mga answers natin are all constants na. Wala na tayong mga variables na x because we are now in the definite integral. And by itself, definite, meron siyang values, meron siyang boundaries. So, of course, our answer will be constant kasi meron na tayong isa-substitute sa mga x values natin. Okay? So, that is how you compute for a definite integral using the Riemann sum.